just looking at folks who are outside of our area. Denise in Albuquerque, and Georgine in Vienna, Austria. It's always good to have someone from in Europe, and welcome. And Daphne in San Diego. And are we missing anyone? Laura from Eugene, Oregon. We're having rainy weather here in the Washington area today. And so those from Oregon will know what it's like. It's kind of a very gray day today. It's like that Holly Hughes poem of, what's she call it? Mind Wanting More. Yeah. Just a gray slat of sun. So welcome everyone. Good to be together again. Hope you're all doing well, keeping healthy. And we were, just before we started, we were talking about getting shots in different stages of having got the first or the second or coming up, and hopefully that will be the case for many of us, most of us, in the coming weeks, and we'll feel some relief of moving into a new, perhaps into a new phase where we're maybe over the worst of the COVID, of the pandemic. So again, welcome to everyone. Yeah, thank you for sharing that the poem, and take a look at that a bit later. So we've the last few weeks we've been moving into a kind of a little bit turning things around, and beginning with the meditation, then having a short talk or reflection, and then Emily will lead us in some movement, and then we'll be do some sharing in the groups, and then finish with a final meditation and announcements. And I think there seems to be a general appreciation, I think, of beginning with the meditation, so we kind of land in get settled right from the beginning, and then we can maybe drop into more kind of other parts, reflection and talk, etc. So we can begin with a meditation. Invite you to kind of find a posture that's comfortable and relaxed. You can close your eyes if that's comfortable. Let your attention come inward. Allow the attention to drop down into the body, kind of out of the thoughts where we spend so much of our time in thinking and planning and remembering and all the things we do with our mind, which is great, but it's also good to come and connect with our feelings, just a felt sense of being here, feeling the body in contact with the surface beneath you, the chair or the cushion. Feel the weight of your body pressing down on your buttocks, on your thighs. And inviting shoulders to relax, chest to be open so you can breathe easily. You could connect with your breathing. Just notice how the breath is as we begin today. And you could consciously deepen the breath. Maybe take some longer, deeper breaths to help you settle more fully into being here. Nice deep inhalation. Filling the body, filling the chest and the lungs. And releasing long, slow out breath. Breathing in, calming the body. Breathing out, calming the mind. And whenever you're ready, just letting the breath settle back into its natural rhythm. Breathing in, breathing out. Can be helpful at the beginning of a meditation to just do some simple practices to help calm and settle the body and the mind. Taking some deeper breaths can help us do that. We can come back to the breath, come back to taking a few deeper breaths if we find we're stressed or we're anxious or tense in meditation, caught up in something. Just to be able to come back a deeper breath or two. And we can invite a smile. A smile helps relax the body, the nervous system, the mind. Inviting the smile to the corners of your eyes and corners of your mouth. Can help to think of something that makes you feel happy, or someone, maybe a loved one, a friend, child, pet. Letting their image come into your mind, heart. Inviting a smile. Inviting the smile down into the body, to the heart. Let the smile be an expression of how you want to meet this moment with the attitude, the expression of a smile. The smile can help us soften if we're feeling tense or dealing with some discomfort or pain. It's helping us relax the body and the mind. It can be helpful too to just briefly reflect on gratitude. Maybe some things in your life that you feel thankful for, appreciative of, grateful for. People in your life that bring you joy, happiness. Maybe conditions that are favorable, maybe good health, security. In the midst of change and impermanence, it's helpful not to cling to anything, but still to appreciate what we do have. in the midst of all the change that supports us, our practice, spiritual practice, religious practice. It's the bounties of nature. So easy to focus on what we lack or what we don't have or what's wrong. Can spend a lot of our time doing that. And it can be a very powerful shift just to turn towards remembering and recognizing what we already have. That's always available to us, that we can come back to. Meister Eckhart said, if the only prayer you say in your whole life is thank you, that would suffice. If the only prayer you said in your entire life was thank you, that would suffice. So just appreciating what we have. And opening to what's present right now. Meeting this moment with acceptance, with kindness. Notice what bodily feelings are here right now. See if you can meet this moment just as it is, with a beginner's mind, the mind that's open. Experiencing this breath for the first time. We've never experienced this breath before. This feeling. Making space for whatever is here, whatever's present. Welcoming the guests in Rumi's image, metaphor. Says the dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. this moment just as it is. You could let the breath be a focus or an anchor for your awareness, if that's helpful. Just aware of breathing in and breathing out. Sensations, maybe the cool air at the nostrils, the chest and the belly expanding and contracting. The simple experience of the body breathing. Not changing the breath or breathing a particular way, but just meeting the breath as it is right now. And when the mind moves into thought, we find we're planning the day ahead, or we're thinking about something that happened before, or replaying a conversation, or just images from a movie, or daydreams, whatever it is, can just notice, recognize that the mind has moved into thought, and gently and kindly come back to the body, come back to the breath. Each time we wake up out of thought is a moment of presence, a moment of mindfulness. So we're not doing anything wrong when we move into thought. It's just a habitual pattern of the mind to go off. And each time we come back, we train ourselves, we train the mind to be more here rather than lost in thought. So the thinking and the coming out of thought is an intrinsic part of the practice. It's not a failure of the practice. It's part, the mind goes off. We kindly, gently come back. whatever you're experiencing, can you just meet it with acceptance, with kindness, just seeing how it comes and stays for a while and then passes. That if we don't get entangled with the physical sensations or the emotions or mind states, then they will just come and go in their own time. And we tend to get tangled up and suffer when we try to hold on or try to push away our experience. Can we make space for what's here? Meeting it with kindness, with interest, curiosity. So creating a clearing, creating a space in the dense forest of our lives, making a space, opening to what's present. Just paying attention with care, with kindness. Not clinging on or pushing away. And if clinging or pushing away come up, just to notice that and let those energies come and go. Opening to the changing flow of experience. Perhaps seeing where we have a tendency to to hold on or push away or space out. To see the possibilities of not following an impulse, to go off or to hold on to something or to resist some experience. Just continually opening to the changing flow of our experience. This from Tom Hennon, Spring Follows Winter Once More. Lying here in the tall grass where it's so soft, is this what it is to go home? Into the earth of worms and black smells, with a larch tree gathering sunlight in the spring afternoon. And the gates of paradise open just enough to let out a flock of geese. Rumi said, silence is the language of God. All else is a poor translation. We can open to the silence, what comes out of opening to the silence. And Lin Yutang said, if you can spend a perfectly useless afternoon in a perfectly useless manner, you have learned how to live. If you can spend a perfectly useless afternoon in a perfectly useless manner, you have learned how to live. Think of Mary Oliver walking in the fields all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me what else, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? So I'd like to share a few words about, particularly about cultivating a beginner's mind. Excuse me. Cultivating a beginner's mind. This idea, notion, experience really from the Zen tradition, the beginner's mind. But we just begin by kind of reflecting on, something that we stress a lot, perhaps all the time, which is the way that we meet our experience. Has a profound significance and a profound importance in terms of our well-being and our happiness. In a way, it's almost, kind of a truism that if we meet our experience with resistance, we're going to suffer. We're going to experience, the present moment as being unpleasant and difficult, etc. And if we can open to our experience, whatever is showing up in an open-hearted way, it's going to be a different experience. Kind of, we know that, and yet we very much still tend to get caught up in, meeting our experience in ways that actually lead us to suffering. Think of stress or worry, which are, a perfect way of being caught up in suffering and worry. Oh, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. Oh, I've got too much to do. And we're kind of, it's almost like we're telling ourselves stories and getting afraid by the stories we're telling ourselves. Oh, this is going to happen. It's going to get bad. But what if that happened? Or, the image I like is of the Zen story of the monk in a cave who painted a tiger on the wall. And each time he looked at the tiger, he'd get scared out of his wits, And of course, he painted the tiger, in the same way we paint our tigers, and then we paint the scenarios of the future. Oh, this could happen, or that could happen, and then we contract in the face of them. So it's, a key to our happiness and our well-being is how we meet our experience. If we meet our experience with resistance, we tend to suffer. We meet our experience with acceptance, we tend not to suffer, or we suffer less. You might be familiar with the equation, kind of a simplistic equation, and but a helpful one as well. It's P multiplied by R equals S. And that's, the P stands for pain, the R stands for resistance, and the S stands for suffering. And, if you have, 5 units of pain or discomfort, and then, you add to, you also have, 2 units of resistance to the pain. There's a pain, and then I don't like this pain. Why am I feeling this pain? Why do I still have it? Why won't it go away again? If I have let's say 2 units of resistance, then 5 multiplied by 2 equals 10, and use your own numbers, depending on the levels of resistance and levels of pain. But if we don't bring any resistance to the pain, what happens? 5 times or 10 or 20 times 0 is 0. No, 0 suffering. So we have the pain, but we don't have the suffering, because we haven't added the resistance to the pain. It's a simplified, oversimplified, but I think it's still it can be a helpful way of thinking about it. The resistance is where, what really leads to the suffering, resistance to life as it's showing up, experience as it's showing up. It's not the thing itself that causes the problem, but really the way we respond to the thing, whatever the thing is. Ajahn Chah, the great Thai teacher of the 20th century, who taught Jack Cornfield and others, and leading monks, and have formed retreat centers, monasteries all over the world. He tells a story of how, he was going to do a retreat, at his monastery. He was going to have a quiet quiet week or however long it was. And, he let the, people in the community know he was going to, be on retreat. But they had a festival planned, and they had all of the things, the music and the noise and everything. So there he was sitting on his retreat, and his mind was going, why don't they stop this noise? I told them I was going to be on retreat, how thoughtless they are of, knowing I'm going to be, having a retreat, and they're having, all this music and all this sound and all this noise. And he said, and then I kind of noticed, and I watched my mind, and I said, maybe it's me that's going out to bother the noise rather than the noise coming in to bother me. And he said, yeah, he said, it's my own resistance that's going out and struggling with this noise. The sound is just being the sound, and the entertainment is just being the entertainment. And how I deal with it is, determines whether I suffer or whether I don't suffer. So he saw from that, this idea of going out to bother the sounds, of getting in a struggle with the sounds, that if he could let go of that resistance, then it wouldn't be a problem. There'd still be the sound, and he'd have to incorporate that into his meditation and all of that. But he wouldn't suffer, Maybe it'd be difficult to meditate, a little more difficult, and that would be just something to work with. But he wouldn't have this extra burden of, it shouldn't be like this. I don't like it. Why are they doing this? Why are they being selfish? All of the stuff in the mind that the mind creates. So a great deal of our practice is really focuses on, how do I meet my experience? How can I meet my experience? How can I meet my experience wisely and skillfully so that I don't keep perpetuating suffering? And there are many, many teachings on ways to do this, in cultivating kindness and acceptance. Learning to, bring back a wandering mind, focusing our attention, cultivating attitudes of kindness and self-compassion, many different practices that we can use. One that's a particularly helpful one that I want to talk a little bit about this morning is, I mentioned in the meditation, is cultivating a beginner's mind. Probably many of you are familiar with the term, a beginner's mind, maybe not everyone. But a beginner's mind, the idea, the concept of a beginner's mind, the practice of cultivating a beginner's mind, comes from the Zen Buddhist tradition. And it really just means a mind that's open, excuse me, and receptive, where we don't think we already know, what's going to happen, or what this experience is going to be like, or what the person that we're talking to is going to say, or how this breath is going to be. Easily we say, okay, I've been breathing all my life, I know how the breath is, and, in some generic way, we may know what, excuse me, what breathing or coughing feels like. But we don't know how this breath feels, or this experience feels. How very easily the mind goes into, I know this. I know what this person is going to say, because they always say that, they're so predictable, and then when I know what they're going to say, or I think I know what they're going to say, we never really do, then there's no space for really seeing things afresh, seeing things anew. the Zen teacher, renowned Zen teacher, Suzuki Roshi, said, you might be familiar with his book, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. It's one of the classic Dharma books, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And he said, in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the experts, there are few. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the experts, there are few. We tend to value expertise, and it's useful to know things and have expertise, but thinking that we know things can be also an obstacle to learning, because if we think we already know, there's very little, we're not so willing to take in new information. There's a Zen story of a very important minister coming to visit the abbot of the Zen monastery, who was, renowned abbot, and the abbot there is, offers the minister a cup of tea, and he sees how full of himself the minister is, of like, oh, I have all these powers, and I'm responsible for this area and that area, and the Zen teacher is offering him tea, and the minister is accepting the tea, and the teacher pours and he pours, and when the tea comes over the top, he says, "Stop! It's full, full." He says, "Yes, just like your mind." He says, "Just like your mind, it's full." So if our mind is already full, there's no way we can learn, because we already think we know. We think of how a young child learning to walk, gets up and, stands up and takes a step or two and falls on its bottom, and then immediately gets up again and tries walking and stumbles. And over time, through that process of, stumbling and getting up and falling, ultimately learns, very quickly often, learns to walk. And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking of, if we were learning to walk as adults, what our approach would be. It would be like, we'd probably begin by strategizing. Now, should I begin with my left foot or my right foot? When we fall over on our bums, we kind of say, oh, I'm useless at this. I shouldn't even bother walking, all of the other kids are, really good at this, and I'm useless. It's maybe I'm just not cut out for walking, and maybe we don't even bother to start. It's just a whole different attitude we bring, that we tend to think we know. I remember when I was a kid, I don't know why this was the case, but I was in the what they call the Cubs, the Cub Scouts back in the UK, and you get these badges, for doing things, for sewing and knitting and athletics and various things. And one of these badges you could get, and one of the things you had to do was to throw a cricket ball, I think it was 30 feet. And for some reason, I had in my mind that with 30 feet was just too much, and I'd never be able to throw a cricket ball 30 feet. Well, the funny thing is, I never tried, and if I'd have tried, probably I could have got close to doing that, and then I could have, but for some reason at that stage, at that time, I believed in my mind I couldn't do it, I thought I already knew what I could do without even testing what I could do. I hope I've changed since then. Certainly not like Nick swimming the Mississippi. Imagine if he's, no, I won't be able to get, imagine you had some thoughts on the way as you, whether you'd be able to make the 1,800 miles, I think it was, but a beginner's mind is just that sense of openness, of not knowing, of curiosity, of the kind of innocence of a child, of not knowing. And think of how different that is from how we often go into, conversations we're not going to listen to a particular channel on the TV because we already know what they're going to, what we're likely to hear there. And that might be a wise thing, but probably a good thing to at least try out and just, what would it be like to hear for a while? You wouldn't have to do it all the time, but just to hear, how things are being presented. And maybe that would be a way of taking in new information. But what we tend to do is a lot of the time we think we know, that person, the difficult person, we kind of have in our mind, how they're going to be, how they're going to, their attitude. And so we go in already as though we already know. And yet in that way, we can't really be open to how they're going to show up. What if they change and we're not open to that change? So the invitation with a beginner's mind is to cultivate this open quality, this not knowing quality of mind. It's really a mind free from preconceived notions and expectations about what will happen or what should happen. And much of our suffering, when we think about it, comes from the difference between how we think things should be and how they are, or how they are and how we think they should be. That gap between the two is suffering. We think we're going to, be able to go out and it's going to be a nice sunny day and we're going to take a walk. And it turns out that it's a rainy day. And that gap, we can think, that oh, I wanted it to be different. And in that gap, we're suffering, oh, I'm so disappointed. I can't walk today. Rather than saying, well, okay, I thought maybe it was going to be a sunny day. Now it's a rainy day. How can I meet this rainy day and get the most, the best out of it that I can? Maybe I can go out for a walk and maybe just, bring an umbrella or wear a coat, etc. Just bring that openness of mind. Imagine, you're meeting somebody and they're arriving and they're 15 minutes late. The mind easily goes to, oh, they're always late. They don't care about me. They don't, they're not interested in our relationship or whatever. And in reality, it could be that, they got caught in traffic, the bus is late, they've had an emergency or whatever. Or think about sending an email to somebody and we feel this is an important email and we're interested in how they respond. And we don't get a response in a day or 2 days, We think, oh, I must have said something to offend them. Or, oh, maybe they don't, they're not interested in, what I was suggesting to them and whatever. And we can jump to conclusions. I think we're all familiar with this, aren't we? Of like how the mind projects, this must be what's happening. And, what would it be like to kind of say, well, yeah, that may be a possibility, but there's also other things, particularly in electronic communications, things can get lost in spam and people just don't see things, but easily we can go to the place of, this must mean this, So it's a very powerful and freeing practice to cultivate a beginner's mind. And we can train ourselves to in cultivating a beginner's mind. One way we do that is to notice when our mind has jumped to conclusions. We can say, okay, could I look at this in a different way? Just as the mind goes off in meditation into thought and we bring it back. When it goes off into thinking we know, what this situation means, we say, okay, what about if I let that be one possibility rather than the way it is? And I can say, okay, maybe that's so. Or another thing they say in Zen is not always so, not always so. We might think that something is the case, but it's not always so. This is also from Suzuki Roshi. As long as we have some definite idea about or some hope in the future, we cannot really be serious with the moment that exists now. So as long as we have a definite idea or a definite hope or way we want things to be in the future, we can't really be serious with the moment that exists now. So the invitation is to keep coming back to this moment. What am I experiencing now? Not through my preconceptions or expectations. Expectations, when we expect something to happen, it's a recipe for suffering, because things won't always happen that way. It's not always so. They say expectations are disappointments waiting to happen. Expectations are disappointments waiting to happen. If we expect anything, then, some of the time things won't turn out that way. So our invitation is to keep coming back to the present moment. Right now, what am I noticing? What are you noticing right now? Eckhart Tolle says, you can always cope with the present moment, but you can never cope with the future, because the future is just a creation of the mind. There isn't such a thing as the future, except for what we project or what we hope for or what we plan or what we expect. All of those are not what's here right now, what is. And then when the future, what we call the future, comes, again, it'll be the present moment. So it's just these present moments following each other, and the future being just a projection or an expectation or a plan. So what we're being asked to cope with and meet is the present moment. And we always have the potential, at least with training, to cope with the present moment. The future is always, it's completely unreliable. We can't take refuge in the future, because the mind can create a future and 5 seconds later create a diametrically opposite future, because it's like just building images, that aren't solid, that aren't real, that are just, are just like puffs of smoke, just create and then they go, they dissolve. So we'll leave it there, just checking in, keep coming back to the present moment, coming back, cultivating this beginner's mind. Even we just remember, coming back this moment, that we can come back, and that this moment, we can meet this moment fresh, free from expectations, free from preconceptions. So we'll now take some time for some mindful movement.
So if everyone would come to your feet, I invite you to come to your feet and just swing your arms, opening up into the space around you, enjoying that freedom. And then slow it down to get the brain's attention, coming down into mountain pose. Turn your palms out and inhale and lift up, reaching for the sky, cultivating the energy of the rain, of water, the cleansing energy, and bring it to your heart. And then cultivate the energy of our Sangha, the kindness and compassion here, and bring that to your heart. And then cultivate the energy of the earth, the abundance there, and bring it to your heart. Let's bring our hands out into cactus arms, holding, breathing in, and exhale down. Inhale up, exhale down. Inhale up, exhale down. Now roll your shoulders one at a time and roll them the other way. Roll them the other way again. And forward again, or whichever. And shake it out. Do your own dance just for a moment. Let's work just with a small back bend. Placing your hands at your waist. Inhale, lift your head and chest. Exhale, draw your hands away from you, which draws your shoulder blades together. And inhale back to your waist, releasing. Now, another deep inhale, rising up your chest, your head. Exhale, draw your elbows together as you lengthen your hands away. And then release. Shake it out. Shake it out. Last movement is a forward bend. Place your hands above your knees. Inhale deeply here. And exhale. Allow your body to drop down to your optimal spot. Just lengthening in this reversal of your heart down, reversing your energy, allowing the pull of gravity. Breathing here. One more deep inhale. Exhale. Just let go. And then bring your hands above your knees. Press on your feet. Roll up, bringing your hands to heart center and release to the sky. Release to the Sangha and the earth. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily. Beautiful, as always. Thank you. Couple of comments or questions, if anyone would like to share before we go into the second meditation. Let's have a look if any hands up. I was someone was remembering a half-day retreat I taught at Flow Yoga. I think it was about a decade ago when the Pride Parade was going on outside. It reminded me a bit of that Ajahn Chah story, you know, that we were meditating there, and then immediately outside the door there was the bikes going, the motorbikes going past, and the sound system, and it was a great practice. And most of the people were pretty new to meditation, but they were really good. That they were really, you know, they didn't go, oh, I can't meditate because there's all this noise. It's like, well, that was how life was showing up that day. You know, there was, you know, that's what we had to work with, and so it was a good experience. It was both for practicing and for teaching. I think things don't go exactly as we planned, and well, that's how life is sometimes.
I believe Cassie has her hand up.
Cassie.
Yeah, I had a question that I think actually, so Holly in the chat had asked a question about the difference between hope and expectation. And I think that's kind of related to something we discussed in my group of after just about a year of this pandemic and still not knowing how we're going to come out of this exactly, like, and feeling just exhausted. And, you know, not trying to project the future, but how do we sort of navigate still not knowing what our lives are going to be like and wanting them to be different and better? I think that's, I feel like most people I know are pretty burnt out at this point.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Cassie. I mean, I think it's a really important question. And you know, those of you who've been coming for a while, you know, in the last year, I've talked probably 3 or 4 times around this kind of notion of hope, you know, which doesn't have a great rap in or reputation in Buddhism. You know, it tends to be treated as like you're clinging to something, you're clinging to the future. But I think there's a wise way of cultivating hope. You know, what Joanna Macy, great teacher and environmentalist, calls active hope. You know, it's hope where we're not, you know, it's not an expectation that something will happen in the future, but it's a kind of a visioning, if you like, a kind of an orienting ourselves in the way that you're speaking about, Cassie, of like, yeah, we do want, you know, we do want to create a better world, or we do want to a more compassionate society. You know, I think we have to have some sense of hope to address, you know, the really crucial issues of our time. You know, without hope, could we really engage with climate change, for example? Without some sense of possibility, you know, we may hold it at the same time that we've already gone so far that, you know, things are, you know, already set in motion and a lot can't be changed. But if we didn't think anything could change, if we didn't have any hope, I can't see how we would engage and how we would kind of become active or stay active. So I think I see hope, I see a kind of wise hope as a skillful engaging with a kind of a visioning of the future and trying to create the you know, a future that's more kind, that's more compassionate. You know, when we think about the bodhisattva, you know, of someone who is committed to their own awakening, but also of the awakening of everyone, of all beings, that bodhisattva commitment, that involves hope. It involves envisioning, you know, involves working with the reality that we have, transforming our own hearts through our practice, hearts and minds through our practice, but also envisioning, kind of saying, you know, what will it look like? What might it look like? I don't think many of the great changes that would have happened in our world would have happened without some sense of, you know, wise hope, active hope, you know, ending apartheid or ending Jim Crow, or you know, even sending, you know, someone to the moon, you know, some vision, some hope that things could be different, that things could be better in many cases. So I think it's really a question, you know, with your question, Cassie, of like holding wisely, you know, engaging with, you know, how things are, being not denying, not avoiding how things are, but also holding out a vision and the steps it will take to get there, to bring that vision into practice, into being. You know, so for me, I think this is a time when it's very wise. I mean, any time is, but, you know, I think particularly right now, with the pandemic and moving into a not back to an old normal but to a new situation, and the potential we have now with the political changes that have happened in the last months, that we have to engage with issues that were at best put on a back burner and at worst completely ignored and turned in the wrong direction, in my view. And I don't mean to offend anyone by sharing those views, but I think we're in a time of hope where nothing is guaranteed, and if things don't go in a positive direction, we could have a movement, a resurgence back to something that's quite negative, because there's a lot of maybe don't go into it much more, but there are forces within the society that I think are quite unhealthy ones that need to be combated in a compassionate way. But I think it's a great exploration, Cassie. I think a really important question. How can we adjust? Pam says a similar question. Yeah. How to adjust between wishes and expectations. It's a lot to do with how we're holding that kind of vision. If we do think that things have to happen or we expect them to happen, then that is a recipe for suffering. But if we hold out the hopes of possibilities, and it's maybe other things might happen, but we'll work to make something beneficial happen, then that can be, and we orient ourselves in that direction, that can be, positive and really important and necessary. Let's take just a very short meditation to kind of tie things up and finish up together today. This will just be 5 or 6 minutes since we're coming to the end of our time. So let your attention come inward. And notice what's present for you right now after the meditation, the talk, the sharing in the group, the movement. Just notice what's present in your body, mind, and heart. And see if you can meet whatever is here with a beginner's mind. It's just like this. However it is, it's just like this. This bodily feeling, this emotion, this mood, this mind state. This is what's here. And if we can make space for it and we can meet it with acceptance, with kindness, then whatever it is doesn't have to be a source of suffering. It's just what it is. It's feelings, it's emotions, sensations, thoughts. We can cultivate a wise and kind relationship to our experience and towards what's happening around us. Then we can be in a more skillful relationship with our life. We could call it dancing with life. We could dance with life rather than struggling with it, wrestling with it. You might finish off with just breathing in a wish of kindness to yourself. Just caring about yourself, your life, holding whatever difficulties or suffering you're experiencing with kindness, with compassion. Breathing in kindness to yourself and breathing out kindness to the world, maybe to individual people who you might feel are in need of some compassion, some care, some kindness, or to groups of people. Breathing in kindness to yourself and breathing out kindness, kindness to the community, the Sangha here, all of those practicing here with us today. Wishing everyone well. May you be happy, safe, healthy. May you live with ease and with kindness. Breathing in kindness to yourself and breathing out kindness, care for the world. May we all be instruments of kindness. May we all go into our families and our workplaces, our communities, the world, with the intention of being kind, of being present. Helping change the world one person, one moment, one breath at a time. May our practice help in the healing of the suffering of the world. And help us live together with kindness, with compassion. This from Thich Nhat Hanh. I hold my face between my hands. No, I'm not crying. I hold my face in my two hands to keep the loneliness warm. Two hands protecting, two hands nourishing, two hands preventing my soul from leaving me in anger. So we will finish off with some announcements. I'll just share a couple of things. I have coming up, I've mentioned in the last couple of weeks, my intention of teaching a series of courses on the core teachings of the Buddha. One image that that comes from the Buddha's teachings is the image of the elephant's footprints. The elephant's footprints, and the Buddha says, the elephant, you know, what animal has the largest footprints? And you know, the answer is the elephant. He says these teachings, he says, of the Four Noble Truths are like the elephant's footprints. All of the other teachings fit within these teachings of the Four Noble Truths, just as all of the footprints of all of the other animals fit within the footprint of the elephant. So all of the teachings fit within the footprint of these Four Noble Truths. So it's a good, you know, it's a kind of reminder that all of the teachings come back to suffering and the end of suffering. You know, how we suffer, why we suffer, how do we alleviate our suffering, how do we find the way out of suffering. So I'll be teaching a 6-week course on these Four Noble Truths beginning on April 19th. I'll share in the link in the chat if it's yeah. And the other thing just to say, as many of you know, probably almost everyone, that there's no charge or no cost for the class, but you're invited if you're inclined and if you're able to give dana, which is the word for generosity in the Pali language, which is how the teachings come down to us through 2,500 years. So your support and the way of doing that is in the chat there Christina's shared. And your support helps me to continue teaching, and I appreciate your generosity and your kindness.